In 1963, the small town of Maplewood was a picture-perfect place, nestled among thick forests and rolling hills. Families picnicked in the town square, kids raced their bikes up and down the streets, and life moved at a slow, cozy pace. But one night, something happened that wiped the town off the map, and to this day, no one knows exactly what it was. Most people don't remember Maplewood. It's not on any maps, and if you tried asking around, even locals nearby might stare at you as if you'd made it up. The government declared it a hazardous site and blocked it off, warning about unstable ground and contamination. But for one woman named Grace, it wasn't so easy to forget. Grace's grandmother had grown up in Maplewood, and every family gathering was peppered with little stories about life in the town before it was lost. Growing up, Grace had listened wide-eyed as her grandmother spoke of the little schoolhouse on the hill, the corner bakery that made the world's best cinnamon rolls, and a massive oak tree that marked the center of town like a silent guardian. But she'd also heard darker tales. The last letters, her grandmother's eyes tearing up as she'd tell it, had been strange. They spoke of a distant humming in the air, a growing sense of unease, and whispers in the night that no one could quite locate. When her grandmother passed away, she left Grace a single thing, an old, cracked locket with a faded black and white photo inside. The photo showed two young girls, arms linked and smiling in front of what must have been the Maplewood schoolhouse. One girl was her grandmother, the other, an unknown friend. On the back of the locket was a date, October 5, 1963, the day before Maplewood disappeared. This wasn't the only thing her grandmother left behind. Grace found stacks of journals, full of memories and sketches from Maplewood. But at the very end of the last journal, on the final page, was a hastily scribbled letter. Grace, one day, you may feel drawn to Maplewood. If you do, be careful, and don't believe everything you see. Grace couldn't shake the feeling that her grandmother had wanted her to go to Maplewood, even if the world said it was dangerous. Driven by a mix of curiosity and a yearning to understand her family's past, she decided she had to visit. She packed up her things, made her way across state lines, and eventually found herself at the edge of a forest road, right in front of a rusted sign, Maplewood hazardous site, do not enter. Ignoring the warnings, Grace hiked down an overgrown path until she reached the town's outskirts. The silence was uncanny. Nature had reclaimed most of the buildings, ivy crawled up walls, trees had taken root through sidewalks, and the few remaining houses stood as hollow shells, windows shattered and doors hanging open. She wandered through the streets, her footsteps echoing in the eerie stillness. Every once in a while, she thought she heard faint whispers, but when she turned, no one was there. Finally, she found herself at the old schoolhouse on the hill, just as her grandmother had described. Though she expected to feel frightened, there was something oddly comforting about it. Inside, dust motes danced in beams of light that filtered through broken windows. Desks were overturned, and a chalkboard still bore faint remnants of a lesson from long ago. As she explored, she noticed a strange sound, a faint, rhythmic humming. The sound felt familiar, like a song she had heard once in a dream but couldn't quite remember. Drawn by the sound, she went deeper into the building and found a staircase leading to the basement. The humming grew louder as she descended into the dark, stale air. At the bottom of the stairs, she found a door, and, to her shock, it wasn't locked. It creaked open to reveal a small room, barely lit by the remnants of sunlight filtering through a narrow window. In the middle of the room was a dusty, metal table with a small stack of envelopes. She picked one up, and her hands began to shake. They were letters from people in the town, dated the day before the town vanished. Each letter spoke of eerie occurrences, visions of loved ones who had passed away, the mysterious humming that seemed to come from all directions, and strange dreams they'd all shared. Grace's heart pounded as she read each one, feeling the dread that must have gripped the townspeople. Then she found a letter addressed to her grandmother. Eliza, it read, if you ever find this letter, know that I wanted to say goodbye. The whispers are growing louder, and I can feel something, something that wants us gone. They say it's just the wind or the old town settling, but I know it's more. I've felt its breath on my neck, heard its voice in my dreams. If you leave, don't look back. As Grace read the letter, a chill ran down her spine. She felt the air shift, the temperature drop. The humming grew louder, reverberating through her bones, and she realized, with growing terror, that it wasn't just sound, it was words. Leave, you don't belong here, the voice whispered, its tone a mix of sorrow and menace. Heart pounding, she turned to flee but was stopped by a shadowy figure standing in the doorway, a woman, draped in dark clothing, her face hidden. The figure raised a hand, pointing directly at Grace. Why did you come back? The figure asked, its voice mingling with the hum. The voice was layered, as if many voices were speaking in unison. Grace stumbled backward, her mind racing, but a memory flickered through her mind. Her grandmother had written that Maplewood was haunted by memories, not ghosts. Whatever presence lingered here, it wasn't out to harm, it was a shadow of the town's past, repeating its last day over and over again, unable to let go. With shaking hands, she held up the locket, showing the figure the photograph of her grandmother and her friend. She whispered, I came to remember. I came because you were loved. The figure paused, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. Then, slowly, it lowered its hand. The humming softened, its tone shifting from ominous to mournful, like a lullaby fading into silence. Grace felt tears fill her eyes as the figure gave one last, lingering look, then dissolved into the darkness, leaving only a whisper behind. Thank you for remembering. Grace fled the schoolhouse, her heart still racing, and as she reached the edge of Maplewood, she looked back one last time. In the dying light, she thought she saw a faint glow, a soft, gentle warmth, like the whole town was saying goodbye. When Grace returned home, she wrote down everything she had experienced. She knew that Maplewood would eventually fade from the world, but she was determined that it wouldn't be forgotten. She shared her story, kept the locket on her bedside table, and every October 5th, she whispered a quiet hello to the ghosts of Maplewood.